I first met Joe Rugola a few days after I announced my candidacy for Secretary of State of Ohio. He was kind, compassionate, and had a vision for Ohio where workers could use trade unions to advance their interests, make sure that they were paid a decent wage, and that they had benefits so that their family had security. Joe is the head of the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, so think about bus drivers, cafeteria school workers, and the many other workers who keep our public schools going. I couldn't think of a better person to have a conversation about where we are as a state in Ohio right now than with my friend Joe Rugola. I hope you will enjoy this as much as I have enjoyed getting to know Joe and his wife Vida over the last year.
Welcome to Care for Ohio, the podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to be with my friend Joe Rugola. Joe is the executive director of the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, a position he's held for over 3 decades. During this time, he's been a leader in the labor movement, not just in Ohio, but nationally, and has seen up close our politics and how it relates to the labor movement. And I couldn't think of a better person to be talking about politics with at the beginning of 2026. Joe, thanks for taking the time.
I appreciate you being here, Brian. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, we've talked a lot about current politics in Ohio, but I was really curious to start with what led you in the 1980s to the labor movement and then to OAPSE specifically?
Well, I grew up in a labor household. My father was a mine worker, and we went through tough times when I was a little kid, but the union lifted him and his family up out of poverty, and then we moved to Ohio, and he joined the Glass Workers Union in a factory where he worked in Mount Vernon, Ohio. So I've been in the labor movement my entire life. I don't remember anything else about our life as a family that wasn't connected directly to the union. And then I had the good sense to marry one of my local union presidents here in OAPSE, my lovely wife Vida from Fremont, Ohio. She was the president of Local 321 there when we met. So we're keeping it a union family.
I didn't know that about Vida. Everything makes sense then. So you've seen different iterations of the labor movement in Ohio and what's happened to our politics in Ohio. I'm curious, you've also seen the rise of non-union working class families in Ohio and how companies will take advantage of folks at the negotiating table. Are there things that particularly worry you with the direction of the labor movement in Ohio or how Republican politicians in power interact with the labor movement?
That is a question that I could take a day to answer. There are many things that concern me. There are things that give me hope as well. The labor movement has not changed in terms of the values that it embraces over the last many decades. Our reason for existing is to try to raise people up, give people a better life. And the members that I represent definitely fall into that category because they're some of the lowest paid public sector workers in the jobs that they do for generally our public schools and other agencies that we represent around the state. The real question for me is whether we can find a way to appeal to a new generation of workers in a way that makes them feel like they need to be part of the trade union movement. You know, there's so much dissatisfaction among young workers out there, rightfully so. We see this, for example, in terms of what's happened at Starbucks as a corporation around the country and other private sector entities as well, where younger workers are finding a voice and trying to stand up for themselves. The real question will be, can we give them an avenue and a mechanism that will give to their voice some power and help them to change? And it's up to the labor movement to make sure young workers understand that's their path to finding a better life. We have to do a better job of that overall. Generally speaking, our decision makers, our national political environment has not been favorable to, kind to the trade union movement. It's become harder and harder to organize. It's more and more difficult to talk to workers in a way that is compatible with the laws that exist out there. And of course, in the public sector, we're now an open shop environment where you cannot extract any kind of support for the union from people who don't want to be members, in spite of the fact that they benefit greatly from the work that we do. So for us, it's about the new challenge is about relating to workers. So it's up to us to take on that responsibility and find a way to make young people feel that they have a place in our movement.
Well, and especially on young people. I'm a physician, as you know, in Cincinnati. And over the last 20 years, we've seen the rise, especially in non-union employers, of these super high deductible healthcare plans where people, instead of having a $500 deductible, now they might have a $5,000 deductible. And instead of a $2,000 out-of-pocket maximum, they might have a $10,000 out-of-pocket maximum. And for a lot of people who are 20, 25, 30 years old, they haven't needed to seek a lot of medical care. And the first time they recognize the nature of their health care is when they get sick or have bad break.
Indeed.
And boy, I was talking with some trade union leaders in Lima, and it's tough to describe the importance of having a skilled negotiator at the table for you for benefits, whether it's retirement or health care. How do you market that to a 24-year-old, a 25-year-old who's looking to join OAPSE?
Yeah, that's the challenge. And of course, we have an advantage in that we are currently operating in 470 locals around the state of Ohio. We're in every county.
Yeah.
So there our exposure in the public sector is pretty significant in Ohio. If people come to work for a public school district in this state, the odds are we're going to be representing them. But the bottom line is that issue that you raise about healthcare has become such a quality of life question for working people, not just young workers, but for all workers. We went years in this union without a strike, probably 10 to 12 years. And then 2 years ago, we had our first strike in a decade, and we've had 2 more since then, and we're taking another strike vote in a major local this coming Saturday. And the bottom line is, in each one of those, healthcare has been at the center of the dispute. Our members don't have $5,000 or $10,000 deductibles. They oftentimes contribute some copay toward insurance premiums, but they certainly don't experience those kind of deductibles. And that's a big difference that the trade union can make in the life of all workers, because we've done a good job of protecting the health care benefits of our workers. And in addition to that, maintaining a wage base for our people that allows them to have a quality of life. And of course, the other linchpin of our work is centered around retirement security, not something that many young workers think about when they're starting out, but it becomes, as you move through your 40s and 50s, it becomes a much bigger concern.
As I've traveled Ohio the last year, we've been to 70 counties now. When we talk about healthcare, there's a lot of frustration, whether you're in a more liberal room or a more conservative Democratic room, there's frustration on healthcare.
Yeah, there is a great deal of it out there. And, because we are so deeply embedded in communities everywhere around this state, our members are exposed to the fears that the general public has about health care. And while many people in the general public would be envious of the kind of benefits that our members enjoy, there's still tremendous pressure on health care benefits across the board. And, now we represent a lot of members in rural Ohio who are afraid that they're not going to have access to health care, even if they can afford it.
Yep.
And that's become more and more of a problem, as you well know, because I've heard you talk about it. Yes. And we have a very high success rate of signing members up to join the union when they're first hired by one of the employers that we represent. we focus on that to educate them right up front about the difference that we can make in their lives. And it is true that still many people coming into public sector jobs are coming out of the kind of environment you describe, where healthcare benefits are not the norm, and where co-pays and deductibles are significantly higher than what our members enjoy. So, it does help, obviously, to have that as a centerpiece of our ability to recruit new members into the union.
At the same time as the importance of being a member has gone up, within public education in Ohio, we've seen support for public schools and public school funding drop, particularly amongst Republicans, and diverting more and more money towards private schools and voucher programs. We always review when we're traveling around in each county we go to. How do they vote? What's in the news? Where do their kids go to school? And as you well know, it's about 85% of kids who go to public schools in Ohio. It seems almost politically impossible to me that public schools have lost so much support within the Republican Party. Can you make heads or tails of that? Why is it supported?
I can make heads or tails of it, and it's profoundly disappointing, the reason for it. Public education is one of the two great drivers of economic equality and economic opportunity. The other is the trade union movement. It's no accident that the trade union movement and public schools in this country have been under attack for a couple of generations now, because if there are people who have set out to undermine public schools because they don't want an educated workforce that will demand the kind of respect and dignity they deserve on the job. And really, if you look back to the 1970s and 80s, you see the conversation beginning on the right about public schools and public education's failure to prepare kids for the world. Now, this in spite of the fact that public education drove our great economic explosion in the 20th century. Kids were going to public schools, and they always will be going to public schools, because you can't create enough private schools. You can't offer enough vouchers and to replace the role that public education plays in our society. But what you can do is you can undermine the funding. You can try to erode public support for the public schools and try to create an environment where the public loses confidence in the public schools. Because those tactics will help you get, if you have the goal in mind of ensuring that economic opportunity is no longer in place in this country, those things will go a long way toward getting you there. And that's really the heart of the assault on public schools. So when you say, can I explain it? I sure can. It's about the fact that public schools are at the center of our economy and at the center of our democracy. Our foundational piece of our democracy. This is why many of our founders had the wisdom to say that common schools, meaning public schools, were essential to the future of a healthy democracy. They understood that and advocated for the whole notion of common schools. Right, our Northwest Ordinance that created our modern lives today, our modern political lives today, had that as a centerpiece. So it's not an accident that there's been an ongoing assault on public education, and it's manifested itself in so many ways, politically and also in the courts. Right? I mean, after all, it was the Supreme Court of the United States that ruled that vouchers, in other words, the funneling of public money to support private education, was not unconstitutional. So we are dealing with so many challenges on so many different levels. And I will say this too, I believe firmly that there are Republicans who understand the importance of public education. It isn't a quality that exists just inside the Democratic Party. I'm going to say honestly that for whatever other differences I may have had with Governor DeWine, I don't believe that he is an advocate for the destruction of public education in this state. I never believed that. And I think there are Republicans who understand the critical nature of public schools, both in terms of fostering economic opportunity and supporting our democracy as well. So that's an ongoing fight, and we wage it every day with our allies at the Ohio Federation of Teachers, the Ohio Education Association, and others in the labor movement who aren't directly part of public education, because people do understand generally that if we don't have strong public schools, we have a massive problem in terms of giving people the chance to better their lives in this state and in this country.
I went to Hardin County last fall, and in Hardin County, we asked folks, 15 people came to the Democratic headquarters of a rural, more Republican county, and I asked them, "But what's a forgotten issue in Hardin County?" And 12 of the 15 said either public schools or economic opportunities for young people so they don't have to leave town as soon as they graduate. And when we were...
Of course, the two are intertwined.
Yes. And as you're driving out of town in Hardin County, we drove by the public elementary school, and the sheet metal on the roof was literally lifting up in the wind.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly had been underfunded.
Yeah.
And Hardin County doesn't have a K through 12 private school. The voucher system, whether you're a Republican kid or a Democratic kid, it's not shunting $8,000 a year to private schools doesn't help anybody in Hardin County. And of course, they're represented by a Republican state rep and state senator, who I hope if we were able to get away from a gerrymandered artificial supermajority in Ohio, that some of those Republicans that know the value of public education would have a little more chance politically to rise to the top. Because, boy, they've been
muzzled and intimidated into silence. And even when they have had the courage to speak up, and some have. But the bottom line is that you're right. A gerrymandered political system drives moderation to the sidelines, right? As a matter of fact, it drives it into a grave.
Yeah.
And really, the gerrymandered system has made sure that it's thrown a lot of dirt on that grave and buried moderation for the time being. So, that's a huge piece. It is not the only piece that we have to deal with in terms of trying to save our democracy, because, by the way, that is a responsibility that trade unionists feel as well.
Yeah.
Most trade union leaders I know understand that we have a direct obligation to engage in the fight to save our democracy. But those things are real, and you're right. Moderation has disappeared in this country, not just in terms of state legislatures, right, which have been gerrymandered, but also the United States Congress as well.
Of course.
And that's one of the reasons, one of the many reasons that we are so deeply divided today.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to, shift gears and ask you to that division, and not what you've seen then in Republicans, but you have watched and observed the Democratic Party up close for many years. Are there things you think we've done over the last decade that have been harmful in rebuilding power and that you think have contributed to how badly Democrats have done in Ohio politics over the last 10 years?
Yeah, I sure do. I may be in the minority in terms of folks inside the Democratic Party who have played a role over the years in holding those views. But I do believe we have significant responsibility for what's happened in our state and our country. After Barack Obama was reelected, and by the way, of course, we delivered Ohio for his 2012 reelection campaign, there really was a decision made. It was a conscious decision, a choice that was made by national Democratic leaders to move away from states like Ohio, to in fact turn their backs on states like Ohio and try to find a different path to holding on to and exercising power. I don't think it's worked. And one of the reasons why working people generally are so skeptical about some of the messages we try to deliver is because people know when they're being talked down to. They know when they're being patronized. They know when folks are being condescending toward them. And I'm sorry to say it, but National Democrats in particular are absolutely guilty of many of those things. That's why, I think, in part, why we have the national environment that we have today, and speaks in part to why we have the president in the White House that we have today. We have to treat people with respect. We have to honor their views, even if we don't always disagree with it. Now, does that mean that we accommodate nativism or racism? Absolutely not. We don't accommodate that. But we have to give people the sense that where we disagree, we still respect them. And I'm sorry, but the Democratic Party generally has not done a great job of that over the years. And because of that, we've lost many working people. And, from 2012 to 2016 here in Ohio, something changed pretty dramatically. Now, that's not the only problem that we have. There are a number of other considerations that have to go in to the question of how we talk to people, how we talk to voters, how we get voters to understand that we really do care as a Democratic Party about their welfare, about their fate, about their kids. But we have done a miserable job of conveying that impression, in part because it's overshadowed by the general sense people have that we look down on them.
Yeah.
And we just can't continue that. Now, I have some hope that national Democrats have learned some lessons in recent years. And my hope is, as a state party and as people who serve in the party, that we all have come to understand that has been a weakness, that we have lost too many average families because we have not listened and have not internalized their concerns.
It feels like half the county Democratic Party chicken dinners over the last year in the state of Ohio. And often, I'll be one of the speakers and I'll be listening to, a Democratic politician going ahead of me. And, maybe 100 people came and spent their Friday night at the Lions Club banquet hall. And they came because they were interested and they're passionate. They're worried about our democracy. And then a member of my party will stand up and start talking House Bill ABC, number 1, 2, 3, paragraph 4.
Correct.
And I look out at the audience and the eyes have glazed over.
Yeah.
We took an audience of 100 people that we need volunteering, donating, organizing, running for office. And their eyes are glazed over because we're talking in the policy weeds and often not at all about values or stories or why people would want to be engaged in this at all. And meanwhile, the Republicans recognize that's right. That's not where you get people. You've got to make an emotional connection.
Correct.
Now, there are thankfully some examples in the Democratic Party I think are trying. They see the problem that you're describing and trying. But boy, I think we still have some learning to do.
Yeah, it's a massive obstacle to overcome. And it's, in a global sense, it's frustrating as a Dickens for Democrats who actually do believe and work for the welfare of working people to have to deal with that kind of a situation, right? But the bottom line is that we have done a lot to put ourselves there. And I don't believe that where we've ended up has been inevitable. I just don't accept that. So we've got a lot of work to do in terms of self-examination, in my opinion, and making sure that people know that we want to hear what they think. We want to know what they feel.
Yeah.
And we want to find a way to connect to it so that the policy questions, which come later,
Yeah.
okay, it's all well and good to talk policy, but policy alone is not going to get you elected. What we have to talk to people about are their hopes, their fears, their worries, and try to address those and connect on an emotional level in that regard. And we just haven't done a good job of that at all.
We talk a lot about care and empathy in our politics, both because it, for me, it connects to the doctor image to politics, but also because when you look at someone like Ramaswamy, boy, the antithesis of care and empathy, hubris, arrogance, and mean-spiritedness.
Yeah.
It's why I'm, excited about Amy's campaign and the energy that it's starting to generate, because it's such a contrast with what Ramaswamy's offering people in Ohio. We always ask podcast guests the last question of, what does it mean to you to better care for Ohio's democracy? And so I'm curious, Joe, what does better care for Ohio's democracy mean to you?
I think we ought to take ourselves back to a fundamental question of the principles behind our nation's founding and the principles that we have tried to live out as a nation and here in Ohio. Our country was born out of a commitment to the ideals of the Enlightenment. Unfortunately, a lot of that's been lost. The notion that reason, above all else, should be applied to what we do. The fact that science and education should be at the center of everything that we advocate for. Those are the notions that I think we have to return to. The founders weren't about flag waving and song singing. They were about a dedication to a set of ideals that was designed to lift people up in every sense of the word, to give them the freedom to achieve if they had the ambition to do so, to give them the opportunities to achieve if they had the hope and the determination to do so. We've lost that. We've lost some of that. And we all bear responsibility for it. I would say myself, in a purely political sense, I blame us. I blame Democrats as much for that as I do anybody else. So we have to aspire to return to our true values and make sure that we commit to do whatever it takes to fight whatever fight we have to fight. Now, my dad was a coal miner and then a glass worker in Ohio. And if there was one thing that he preached to me all the time, he was a man of few words, but he said, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing right. And if you start it, don't stop until you're done. Maybe that explains why I'm still going after 48 years. I took that to heart. But the bottom line is that we have a responsibility to wage the fight in every way that we can. Take chances, take risks, stick our necks out, say what people might not always want to hear, because if we are sincere about it, if we believe in what we're saying, most people, out of a sense of fairness, will give us a chance to have our views heard. But we have to also reciprocate and treat Ohioans the same way that we want to be treated in that regard. Now, I don't know if that answers your question.
It very well does.
But that's my view of the obligation that we have to each other moving forward.
Boy, I think that is a great way to leave this conversation and also to enter 2026 with some hope and some dedication to listening and telling stories. Joe, thank you for taking the time.
Not at all. It's been a pleasure, Brian.
Thanks for listening to that discussion with Joe Rugola. As I was listening to Joe, one thing that just constantly struck my mind was that he's talking throughout this interview about a vision for the future, What does it look like to build power in Ohio? What does it look like for a union movement that helps Ohio families advance their own interests and have a society that works for all of us? That's the kind of vision we need in 2026 for Ohio. So thank you for joining us for this discussion with Joe Rugola, and I hope you'll join us on the next episode of Care for Ohio, the podcast.